delgado acolo este, va fi corner, dragi ascultători.
All right, fuffity fuff. Oh God, we're supposed to do a thing.
Rich man, it's the ABBA thing, you know, rich man will do that. I don't know why it's not relevant.
Hi, welcome to Getting Broke. Normally we do a song, but I can't think of one this week, so I'm not even going to try and gloss over it. What you will have enjoyed is the preamble where you could hear us failing to come up with one. I'm Richard Jackson, this is Duncan Casey, and we're here to talk about Adam Wingard's 2014 film The Guest, written by Simon Barrett. They were previously known for the film You're Next, which is kind of a stalky slashy thing. I watched this when it came out. I was very swept up in the marketing for it because it was quite low key, it was quite mysterious. It wasn't a big movie by any means. I happened to be in London doing work, so I just went into Prince Charles and Leicester Square and watched it on my own. And I really enjoyed it. Something that was quite low key. I think, you know, Dan Stevens from Downton Abbey, who's now gone on to bigger things in it. You watched it the other day. You reported back kind of, I'm going to say positive but ambivalent maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of that's to do with the fact that you kind of,
I was like, it's amazing. And
yeah,
you go watch
well,
it.
and it's probably the contrarian nature in me that goes, we'll see about that. And, you know, that's fine. No, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a great little romp. As in terms of like one thing I really loved about it is it heralded something as part of a general thing that's going on now, as a sort of return to a mid-budget type film.
Yes.
And I like that about it. And I think it's a great little story, well told. It doesn't, you know, one could argue it's disappointing, and we'll get into this, but the sort of reveal, if you can call it that, isn't particularly deep. But then it doesn't need to be. It's sort of like one of those stories that actually it's just
It's not about the story, it's about the destination.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's just a nicely told story in a well, you know, and well put together, and it hasn't got its eyes on any future prize. It's just a contained story. Although I mean, it sort of does at the end, but you know, not necessarily.
Yeah.
No, I had a good time with it. I thought it was a very well put together little movie. Really enjoyed it. Great performances. Great movie, you know. There it is. Yeah. Yes.
I thought my view of it was that it's kind of Cape Fear meets the Terminator. Yeah. And I've got a few, because I see what you mean, because like basically he's not who he says he is, Jadoi, and he's had some kind of experiment done on him. Yeah. And it's kind of like you feel as if there could be more to that, but I suppose it doesn't really matter. I mean, I know they retooled it slightly after test screenings because it all felt a bit too vague to the test audience.
Right.
And they don't really do a lot with what's gone on. They've done bad things to him and it's made him bad, basically.
It's like Jason Bourne type programming, I guess.
That's what I kind of like. It's a nice blending of things, I think. It's sort of a genre smoothie. And because what Wingard does, and I like, he uses like the John Carpenter font for the opening screen, so there's an obvious kind of feeling of John Carpenter to it. It's got, I think something that kind of inspired me a lot with it is that I kind of feel like the original Terminator film has a kind of X factor that I don't think is often discussed. It's mojo, if you will, the thing you can kind of extract with a syringe. And it's not necessarily that it's about robots and time travel. And I think this film really captures that, the kind of sense of pursuit and the sense of menace. It's a bit different because it's a Cape Fear thing and he kind of cuckoos them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But just the way he is, the way because you know, he's not a robot, but the portrayal of him as a kind of sociopath, something the Terminator doesn't have. I've kind of gone off point, but it's a really good portrayal of a sociopath because he's got that superficial charm and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But also when he is pursuing them, he's kind of singular and he kind of cuts that figure.
It's also a thing about someone with a sort of programmed objective versus one that they have cognicized themselves. So he's like, it's almost like he's gone haywire and his programming is all to shit. And it's like, well, he's not. It's like if soldiers just follow orders, what happens when those orders corrupt or go wrong? And you know, and so that's. I gather. I mean, it's unclear to me really what his objective is in the whole film, because he ends up obviously. Well, are we spoilers?
No, fuck it. 5-year-old movie, get over it.
Ends up kind of killing the family, and sort of it's like I'm not sure, you know, because it starts out that he's there. He fought with their son, and you know, he's got this. Yeah. He infiltrates them first.
Infiltrates,
and then starts sort of killing them kind of in a way, and it's like I'm not entirely sure what.
I think he's just sort of broken.
Yeah,
because he's escaped, but then he can't help himself.
Was that bit when he gets into that first night he spends there? He just sits on the bed and just suddenly sort of goes into a shutdown mode.
I love all that stuff because there's these really there's kind of family life. And then there's some cuts to him just running.
Yeah, do you think that is literally to say to the audience, like, because it's in the one sense I think you're supposed to go, oh, he's got something up his sleeve, or is it actually that he's just a vacant?
I think it's somewhere between the two stools. Right. I think because he's a manipulator. Yeah. Because he manipulates. Like the bit when he orders fireballs and then he deals with the school bully. Yeah. Like that scene's just like, whoa, brutal, and it's sort of, but he's done a kind of. It's funny because that's his idea of doing a good turn. Where actually he's horribly brutalized a bunch of kids and then he's given schnapps and Tabasco to a child essentially. Yes, like that kind of stuff because he's got machinations. But I think that's what's kind of good because it's called The Guest. He's going to be bad, but when it cuts to him just sort of sat there. It's kind of like he's sort of a blank. Is
it also? I think it's also a sort of First Blood type comment on or commentary on returning war vets and stuff. Massively, who no longer have a purpose, I suppose, but are still everything's at 11 as it is. Because they go through their training. There's no come down. Because I've met guys like that a lot, especially through the film industry and stuff. They end up there and I don't mean to say this is like that they're all murdering psychopaths. They're not at all. They're wonderful people, but. There is that sense of they have to do everything at 11 because that's just how they
because there's an expectation of
which is totally understand. It's like you don't just do the thing adequately, you go in 110% in. So I guess that this is a big kind of sci-fi almost type take on that, which is interesting. It's good. It's got your man from John Wick in there who's also in Bosch, if you've watched Bosch on Prime. Yeah. Mr. Wick.
Mr. Wick.
Yeah. Who ends every line with which I do sometimes.
Dramatic exhale.
Yeah, I do that as well. But anyway, I really liked it. Like I say, I think
it's a great little thing. And like I say, it's a mid-budget kind of thing, and I think it just captures. I think they've clearly got there. And knowing like Wingard as a filmmaker, he's obviously got his eye on that kind of 80s thing. The marketing for this is very much the blue and red light. So all the posters and stuff with that kind of slightly Nicholas Winding Refn look.
Exactly what I was just going to say. Yeah.
The film itself is a bit. Particularly the disco scene at the end. Yeah. And the disco scene's got that great soundtrack and there's loads of kind of synth pop and stuff like that and mostly pop songs and shit in the soundtrack. Really great soundtrack, but it's not kind of like, ooh, sweatbands and DeLoreans. Like that's what I like. If you're gonna do something that's a pastiche of kind of 80s stalk and slash horror or whatever. Yeah, don't have everyone on a skateboard in Bermuda shorts. You know what I mean? Yeah. Do the terror, do the kind of mood, do the kind of sense of dread, do the kind of dark lighting. Because it looks a lot like a Carpenter film in a lot of places, lots of kind of inky blacks and stuff like that. Yeah. But lots of kind of, what Carpenter didn't do, lots of kind of bright colours. That was mostly for the marketing in the DVD case rather than the film itself, really. Right.
Well, there's the superficiality of it. I do wonder, because the way it ends, it just skews into the slightly surreal. Because I know they go into the school dance thing and it's all been done up. But it's done up to a ludicrous degree when you're into this like maze and there's stuff popping out. And it's like, I like that because it's almost like the film is saying like, look, this is all just dress. It's all window dressing. It's not that. And then he survives the end when when he shouldn't do and stuff. And he walks out and it's like, it just goes into a very surreal thing at the end, and but you go like it doesn't.
Well, that's what I mean. It's sort of the fact that the kind of Terminator thing is the fact that he is sort of indestructible. Yeah, and he kind of and that as well. And this is it's really I'm not going to
Myers, really.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not Jason Voorhees so much, but it's in that vein. But
totally stole your thunder.
No. You're absolutely right. We're on the same track. It's Michael Myers. You can't kill him, but he's more charismatic than Michael. And then that's what I like. I think it's a really great balance of all these different films.
But one could argue that the charisma and the outward stuff is his mask, effectively.
Oh god, yeah. Oh yeah, because what the real him is the man
underneath is just the program, yeah,
because again, it's a great, sociopaths exist and in society, and you've probably met a lot of them in middle management, and that's not me being glib, but it's true. Like a lot of sociopaths do really well, and there's a couple of people I know from my life who I'm certain are sociopaths, and I find them quite frightening.
I know one.
and it's that thing of like superficial charm, and this Dan Stevens does this really well. It's like that superficiality, and you kind of when you say that you watch the master slip, which when you watch the master slip, which I know a couple of people who do that, and it's the creepiest thing. And Dan Stevens does that really well, and he's so good at. And it's the stuff of him. I like the cuts to him running, the cuts to him just looking at stuff, and you know he's going to be a bad guy. So it's not terribly subtle, but you get him just kind of the unguarded version of him. Yeah, but that's not the blank.
Yeah, it's not the point of the film. You know, I suppose when you start out, you think there's going to be a reveal of he's a baddie. But it's like, actually, no, we already know that. It's got that cinema trope of he's way too, you know, he does exactly the cuckoo thing of, you know. And like,
because he ingratiates himself so quickly, but you know something's not quite right.
Well, and it's more the fact that he's able to do that because I think he instills in them, it's that fear of offence. There's a line in
Oddly British.
There's a line in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo about the fear of offence being worse than the fear of pain, and that humans will instinctively, you know, like they'll literally walk into a trap because they don't want to offend someone, you know, and until it's too late. And this is very much that. It's like I think they know there's something not quite right here, but they're erring on the side of he's got PTSD or something, and he has that connection with our son who's dead. And again, you know, the son's dead. I mean, he's literally moving into it is a cuckoo thing. There's one out of the nest, he goes in. You know, it's that sort of thing. So it's just a nicely told little story, you know. And that's...
I think what, you know, my thing with it is that it's a really nicely told genre story, but it hybridizes a number of things really, really well. And like I say, I reference kind of both versions of Cape Fear, really.
Right.
But it definitely has a Hitchcockian vibe to it. You know, it's that person coming in, and you know, because Hitchcock did a lot of stuff about people manipulating or people plotting.
Yeah.
And the fact it is essentially about someone going around killing people, it's not. It looks like, you know, the first time I watched it, it's like, I don't think he's going to be a robot, but if he, because if this just went off that way,
it's
it'd
like
be
face
like,
fell off. It's like nothing. Like, puts it back.
Would you like?
No, nothing.
You wouldn't be too surprised.
Yeah.
There's a lot of films that do that. You know, it doesn't become a thing. We took like Predator. It doesn't. You could watch the first without the spaceship at the beginning. You could watch the first act and still think it was.
Which is how I saw it the first time, and I actually think it works better that way. If you're a first time viewer, but then literally no one in the world is a first time viewer of that film anymore, because it's just too. It's like when you're born, you get given a copy of Predator, and
it's cultural penetration. Precisely. Yeah. And this, it's got a little bit of Hitchcock, a little bit of Cameron, a little bit of Carpenter, of course, a bit maybe Toby Hooper. I mean, one of the really obvious things is the goings on in the town are that they're building up to the dance, and it is Halloween, isn't it? It's like a Halloween dance. Yeah. And much like, because the film Halloween doesn't have to do it as subtly, but in the background, you know, famously they had to ship in brown leaves because it wasn't autumn when they filmed that. Yeah. But you know, in the background of the film, all the goings on when the daughter is kind of like figuring it out, people are hanging decorations in the background of shots. You know, there are kind of offers in the bars that relate to Halloween, and obviously they're building up to their big dance and stuff. So the kind of fabric of the film is about that. So that makes it feel like Halloween. My point of kind of going back briefly to that, I really felt like it sort of captured the Terminator a little bit, just because he can't be killed and there's that kind of menace to it, and there's the kind of sci-fi element because you know they turn up and, you know, say, hello, I am a soldier and nothing to see here. Classic. Yeah. It's the trope of the army covering something up. Yeah. You know, so that kind of gives it a sci-fi thing, but it's just the way he pursues and the way he plots. Because the Terminator, like I said before, is kind of like a reverse detective story in that he's detecting how to kill Carl and Sarah, but you don't see it from his perspective. Yeah. Which gives it a kind of a noir vibe. And this has kind of a very strong film noir kind of element to it.
Yeah, I mean, but I suppose the actual outcome is that there was no point really to it. I suppose there's themes of government overreach into people and how that has repercussions. There's also sort of a sort of looser discussion on adults' relationships to kids, because obviously Dan Stevens is a lot older than the kids in it, but he ends up at one point at that house party and he sort of shags that friend of her, and it gets a bit
it gets really icky.
And it's kind of like, and then they sort of have this kind of relationship, but not really going on, and then he ends up killing it, doesn't he?
I think so.
He shoots her or something, and then blows up the
Yeah, because it is really unpleasant in quite a lot of places as well.
Yeah. The violence when it happens is quite.
Yeah.
It's not gruey, but it's like it's nasty. It's violent. I mean, it's
It is nasty.
You feel it. You know, it's got a weight to it.
It's not dwelled upon particularly though. It doesn't feel like hostile or whatever. It's not going to torture porny.
It's more impact.
Yeah.
It's like there's the car crash. There's when he's smashing glasses around people's heads, and literally blowing up.
And some of it's quite because it's that kind of that sort of uncomfortable laughter when something ridiculously brutal happens.
Yes. Yeah.
Like the smashing the glass in the head is just like because you laugh because it's like you don't expect it and it's so brutal.
Well, it's the rhythm of it. There's always that sort of slapstick rhythm to it, even though it's a harsh, serious fight. There's that like bish, there's that,
and it's part of it is quite deadpan because it's very unfussy.
Yeah,
it's just kind of like locked off shots of bosh.
Yeah,
and it's just like you have to question what you're seeing, and a lot of the kind of in as much as there is any action in it, because it's not really action so much as it is violence. It's not kind of shaky, like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of quite.
And it's interesting actually because I think the first sort of real violent scene is that bar fight, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's the first.
And the way it introduces us to his version of violence is the way that you're sort of in the shoes of the family, or more specifically the boy, in that there's a righteousness to it. You think he's on the side of right initially, and you're kind of drawn into the idea that maybe he is doing good. He's just doing it too far. He's going too far. And that's a nice way to like just slowly as the violence starts to ramp up and then it starts to just to happen to other people and stuff, and it's like
well, it draws you into the it kind of draws you into like a death wish thing because something's not quite right with him, but I think it kind of draws you into like the death wish idea of like, if you actually look at what Death Wish does in those films, what Charles Bronson character does, like he's a fucking awful monster. Like, but because he's doing it to bad people, you kind of go like, well, it's about time someone did that. Yeah. So when he takes on the bullies, it's a little bit. A part of you's kind of like, too bloody right, those bullying bullies. But then it's also like, those are kids.
I know.
It's just fucked
disfigured,
up.
like it should. Yeah, I know. And then weirdly, they get shown that there's like an aftermath stuff with them as well, isn't there? That you get to sort of see them again afterwards.
There is that. This film does show the consequences of violence, and violence is shown as a negative force.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's not particularly glorified. I think that's what's good about it. It's kind of horrible, and you just kind of go like, Jesus.
Yeah.
Like that's awful.
Yeah, because literally has a head-on collision with the dad, played brilliantly by
that guy.
That guy from Everything.
Yep, he's in Very Bad Things, and he's in Alien Resurrection, where he gets a thing for the head, and no one ever knows his name. He's in Seven. He's the killer dildo guy from Seven.
Yeah, he's great. But sorry, I even looked him up when I was watching it. I was like, I must learn that guy's name. It's like Sebastian something.
He's in all the things.
But he's brilliant, and he's great as that dad who's like, and his one thing is, I'm drinking. He comes home, I'm drinking. Shut up! Don't nag me. I'm drinking. And he's just, but to a fault. He's shown as a sort of couldn't get out of his own way, always complaining about his situation. And obviously off screen, his boss mysteriously dies, right? And he's like, I just got promoted and it's weird. And it's like, and that's not enough. And that's another nice little bit of characterization. It's like, that's still not enough for him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like all the thing he belly aches about, and then someone comes along and just solves his problems for him, and he's like, no, he's still a miserable twat.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Like Dan Stevens' character comes in, and that's his version of doing good by these people.
Yeah,
it's just like murder anyone that's in their way or inflict horrible violence upon them.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of devolves into him murdering his way through town because probably he's just bored or he's had enough. You know what I mean? I guess so. Well,
there's that sort of almost Stalin-esque ramping up of like he kills the people who because someone might see what happens, so he'll kill them, and then and then it escalates into this. Crazy
they saw what happens, but then they saw.
Yeah, exactly.
You ever played the Hitman games?
Yeah, but some of the earlier ones.
Because there is that thing in that. It's like,
oh shit, you got to run after and kill.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, whoop, whoop, you have a witness. They saw you hide it. Wait, before you know it, you've like murdered your way around it.
Close your ears, Winston. Yeah.
The kind of, there's sort of escalation of witnesses and stuff.
I imagine it to be that. It's just this like metastasizing situation that he just ends up having to literally throw grenades into a diner.
That's what I mean, because stuff like that is so over the top, but it's handled so matter of factly. It's like, Because it is funny. I think you are supposed to laugh at it.
Yeah,
it's so deadpan.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of. I kind of feel a little that this film is undervalued. I think it should be discussed more as kind of a bit of a cult classic, and it just isn't one. I don't think. It's out there, and those who like it. But I just thought it wears all its influences on its sleeve, and it's so playful with all of that stuff, and effectively so.
Yeah.
So I thought I was watching it going, I recognise all of these things, but this isn't Ready Player One.
The tropes are dropped in purely as a cinematic shorthand, I think. So like the government offices, the military, the sort of Pentagon offices are just so generic. It doesn't matter.
That stuff was added afterwards, I think.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah, because it was sort of like, who was this guy? And they had to add in like...
No. But that's fine. Yeah.
A bear has escaped from the zoo.
Yeah. And then, all the like SWAT team stuff and it's all very but but I know that's there for that reason. It's not there because of referencing, and it's not there because of laziness. It's deliberately like that because I think film doesn't want to waste time sort of talking about the secret government organisation of Splendiblar and Operation Hasselback potatoes. It's just fucking it's a government scheme. So what? There's a Blackbriar or whatever whatever thing from that's fine. Just accept it as that. It's just, it is built up of tropes and stolen things from other movies, but yet it has this. And I think it relies obviously on you, the people watching it, to be conversant in cinema. Like it really does. It's a story you have to be quite plugged into the language of cinema to. I think
to fully appreciate, but not. Yeah.
If you're not to enjoy it. But, I think it. But it tips its hat to that kind of like, if you know all that stuff, you'll know we're using it to tell a story that it's just a story at the end of the day. We're not trying to make any groundbreaking like. Well,
that's kind of why that's sort of why I link that back to John Carpenter, because something I always liked about Carpenter movies, and it's something in the kind of critical debate around him. It's like he'll tell you that there's no subtext and it's just a story about such, which is probably true, but you can read into anything. But they're just these really unfussy, unpretentious stories that borrow a lot from, Howard Hawks and that era of cinema. That's his jam. That's what he does. So, like Escape from New York, you can say it's a comment about gentrification, and you can say whatever, but ultimately from John, he will tell you it's about a man escaping from New York. And Assault on Precinct 13 is Rio Bravo in LA. And whatever. Yeah. And this works on that level, but it's also as a piece of hybridized genre cinema, it works really well because the town is Haddonfield, right? And it has all the look of Halloween, but then it's got all these other things going on in it as well. Which it's texture, but it's not the Seth MacFarlane school of like, this is worse than Michael Myers, or quickly, let's escape in my DeLorean. Like it's not any of that. Like it's referencing that era, but not in a kind of mawkish way.
Yeah, no, definitely not. I think it's one of those things. I think if you're dealing with archetypes and you're dealing with, at the core of it, you're sort of dealing with a story. That's right, I'll give it an answer.
Cool.
If you're dealing with like tropes of humans, then invariably you're going to be you can pick things into it. I'm sure this strikes me as a film where there is stuff to unpack from it if you want.
Yeah, that's my point. Yeah, it's in there, but you don't have to.
There's that sort of blank canvas thing that I think is in a way, it's like the film is kind of looking back at us and going, if you're sin illiterate and you're recognising tropes, and I bet you were just sitting there going, I bet he's that, I bet that's happening. And then by the end of it, you go, what? And some people will find that unsatisfying because I think we've been conditioned to reach the end of a film and go, I get it now, I'm more clever now.
Fucking clever.
I was so smart because I saw that coming. And it's like, I think it's probably it's a comment on that in a way, in saying like, fuck off.
Yeah, it's a very sin illiterate film. That's the thing. I'm in no way saying there's no subtext to it, but it does it in an unfussy way. Yeah. And you're right, because you're in a way, like it's sort of original to not do a twist or anything because you constantly have to.
It's a film about a conditioned person talking about the conditioning of its audience that ultimately doesn't have any.
And that's why you come to Val Verde.
There you go. We've solved it.
We've solved it. Yeah, no more. Burn your copies of The Guest.
You don't need to see it.
Don't speak to the director or anyone. We've figured it out.
We know.
We know. We're more better, I might say. That's the thing. It's sin illiterate, and it clearly has subtext and stuff, but it's mostly concerned with telling its story, and it's building on kind of classic genre stuff and slashers, the sci-fi and everything, but it kind of can't go. He was a robot. he was a ghost. It was a dream, because it's all been done, and you're, like you say, constantly saying. So the only thing it really can do is have it kind of get this slightly implausible ending and then sort of escape.
Yeah.
And the structure of that, the kind of, it's not the whole third act, but it's the final scene is very much a haunted house, because it literally is a haunted house. But a pretend.
And it's it's tropes of like there's dry ice all over the floor, and it's like, when convenient, that's enough to hide a person in. Which it never would be, but it's just like literally, you can hide
for the purposes of
disappear for literally like a spectre.
Because it's classics, exactly. Yeah. It's classic slasher stuff, and the point, he's vapor, right? Because he doesn't have a name, he doesn't exist. And you move through the kind of. Any haunted house stuff is about moving through an infernal space, right? And it's a literal Halloween haunted house in a school. So they move through the kind of infernal space and they kind of chase through it and everything. But it's got that kind of 80s pop style stuff going on in it. And he escapes at the end. It's Michael Myers falls out the window, then he's missing. I shot him 6 times.
Is it a film, and I don't want to get too deep into the reads on it, but it's possibly also a comment on identity as well, and the value or lack thereof of identity, and what it means, and what happens when you strip someone of identity and try and program them with something else. And, if they don't have that anymore, what can that result in? You've also got the family characters who've all got their kind of stereotypical, archetypical roles, like the dad and all that. But what's his identity? His identity is a grumbling, complaining, done by bloke.
He's ineffective as well. That's why he's able to kind of cuckoo, because
sort of self-neutered dad.
Because he takes care of the bullies. He takes care of the dad shit. And has he had his identity stripped by,
being just a rat in the maze of
He's a cog in a machine, right?
I don't know. The boy has kind of had his stripped by bullying.
The kids have the kind of thing of being subsumed into high school, right? And because you're not one of the beautiful people, you're just a fucking generic member of the. So there's that in it, and obviously the thing with him is about losing your identity in the army and becoming.
The mum lost hers because she lost her son. As the mum, she's kind of lost her. So it's what happens when identity is kind of removed, either by force, as in the Dan Stevens character, or just by life and all the shit goes on. And what. I don't know. Maybe I'm reaching it short.
Well, I don't know. I would say the theme of the film, something that's kind of through the stick of rock of the guest, is like identity or lack of therein, depersonalization. I mean, they're very, if you're being experimented upon in the army, you are just a number. And that's a real life thing. So many awful things, giving soldiers syphilis, giving soldiers acid, like all that fucked up stuff they did.
Well, a uniform, right? Strips you of your identity.
And your number, name, rank, and serial number. No haircuts. Well, I think we can about wrap up the guest.
I enjoyed that.
Did you watch it? Is it back on Netflix or is it on Prime in this country?
I believe it was on Prime. Yeah, so
it was on Amazon Prime in this country. It was on Netflix. If you haven't seen it, I really recommend it. It's a great little kind of one and done that was not sequelized, which I'm happy with. It's a good fun time. We probably spoiled it, but it's not too long. Doesn't extend its welcome. Tightly wound kind of little thriller. John Carpenter makes Cape Fear, I would say.
Yeah, I get on board with that,
There you go. So we are here. You can like and subscribe if you want to do that. We have Patreon. We have PayPal. We always struggle with this every episode.
You would think we had Redbubble.
Redbubble, you can buy this sick merch.
I always say Twitch and Discord, and those are the two most redundant.
We don't use Twitch or Discord. We probably should go back on Twitch. We do live streams from time to time. I would say just go down in the old description there and see what's going on.
Down in the old description there.
Oh, my rare clam chowder.
Sound like ham from Toy Story.
Oh, there you go. Well, that's it. We're done. Good. Bye. Support your 7th or 8th favourite YouTube channel by buying crap, tat, junk, hogwash and filth at redbubble.com/people/Val Verde Shop.